Morning to all. Welcome to this, our weekly brief of the United Workers' Party. This morning we will be focusing on the crime situation in the country, as well as the perennial problem of very, very expensive school books. You, the people of St. Lucia, are still struggling with the high cost of education supplies all over our country. For many of you, school has reopened, but you're still trying to make ends meet to gather all the supplies you need. Some have reused uniforms and other supplies from last year, while others are still suffering from the emotion of political victimization, having gone to your local MP for help. The price of books remain largely out of control of the reach of many families, while shoes, bags, vests, and socks are heavily taxed. I like to go shopping ever so often because it gives me the opportunity to feel what people are feeling, to understand the prices of goods and services in our supermarkets, in our gas stations, and these days in the bookstore. So I went in search of education supplies for my two sons this summer. We priced a backpack, and I was shocked to have learned that the price was $385 just for one school bag. I think the brand was Spray Ground. My sons would know best. Here is the point though. If I had to buy two of these bags, it would cost me $770, almost $1,000, just for two school bags. This was way below what I would need in total supplies, because we haven't included shoes, we haven't included uniforms, we haven't included books. But just at the school bag, I would have spent for two bags $770. This was way over the budget, however. And I thought to myself, those people who are making less than I do, how do they cope? How do they manage to address those situations? How do they manage to afford the school books situation, which continues to be extremely high? My 7 and 10-year-old sons had their own debate about brands, and then it occurred to me that many students are under peer pressure in our schools. They're under peer pressure to wear trendy brands, just like when you were much younger. It would mean that a parent would face a much higher cost to gather supplies for their children. So to add to the already high cost of school books, bags, shoes, and other supplies, the consideration of recognizable brands is a big factor that adds to the extra costs for you, the parents. It also struck me that there was a global inflation crisis after COVID, which skyrocketed the cost of goods. To make that post-COVID cost of living phenomenon worse, the government added a 2.5% tax on shoes and on bags and on clothing apparel. So imagine this. You are the owner of a shoe store in Castries, and you import shoes for a living. Then it would mean that every time you bring shoes into the country, that on footwear, says the Health and Security Levy, that you would have to pay 2.5% at customs. Then to haul that container on the trucking fees, you would have to pay another 2.5%. On the brokerage of the same consignment of shoes, you would also have to pay an additional 2.5%. On the marketing bill of of the shoe store, you would also have to pay 2.5%. On the rent of that shoe store, you would also have to pay a 2.5%. On the security guard or the security company that you have hired to secure that shoe store, you would also have to pay a 2.5%. On servicing the computer that you would use for the till, cashing in and out and the keeping inventory, you would also have to pay 2.5% to the government. These are just some of the many examples where the 2.5% is compounded. Now, in addition to the 2.5%, you would also have to pay VAT, 12.5% VAT, on bags, on shoes, on socks, on vests, and other clothing apparel necessary right now for back to school and sending your children to school looking the very best they can. All of these costs are passed on to the consumers, carrying up the cost of school supplies even further. We in the United Workers' Party have always argued that the 2.5% is a brainless idea. It's a bad idea. It's an idea that will only compound an already difficult problem, one of very high cost of living. And now we see the ripple effect that it's having on school supplies. This will only make a bad situation worse. It makes the cost of school supplies much more expensive and further out of reach of many parents who are still struggling to complete their back-to-school shopping. It places a significant burden and hardship on the backs of ordinary families, already struggling to make ends meet with unlivable wages. But please allow me to say this to you. When you elect the United Workers' Party, one of the first order of business is to revoke the 2.5% that makes life difficult for you, the people of St. Lucia. We will end this ill-conceived tax created by the St. Lucia Labour Party that does not understand the ripple effects on cost of living that this tax is having on you, the people of St. Lucia. Given the high costs that you, the parents, face every summer with the cost of back-to-school supplies, consideration must also be given to the removal of VAT on bags and on shoes and everything that resembles school supplies during the months of July, of August, and September. We do it every year for the Christmas Barrel program. We can do it for back to school. These are not normal times. These are difficult times on you, the people of St. Lucia, that requires a government that understands your plight and a government that understands how to solve your issues. This will help significantly to reduce the cost of school supplies. No student should have to miss school because their parents can't afford school supplies. This is untenable. Every child deserves our best attention and investment that we could give as a country. Then there is the distribution of vouchers, supposedly meant for the less fortunate. But our understanding is that your name has to be on a certain list before you can qualify to receive the help from the Social Development Fund, better known as SSDF. You have to be recommended by your local MP, some residents have said to me, which means that if you are perceived to be a supporter of the current government, then you stand a much better chance of qualifying for assistance. But if you are perceived to have a different political persuasion, then as they say in local parlance, crapo smoke your pipe. I challenge the government to clean up this program and offer genuine help to the parents for school supplies, regardless of their political affiliation. Every child in this country deserves our help. Now, the government went further, and in the economic and social review for this period, we see that the government has reduced the school subsidy. The government has said that there is less demand, is the explanation given to us in the parliament, but we don't buy that. We believe that the government deliberately reduced the school subsidy. So people that are coming from rural communities, from Choiseul, coming to school in Castries, from Soufrière, from Canaries, from Anse-Lorraine, from Dennery, from Micoud, from Vieux-Fort, and these areas in the south of the island that requires that extra help with getting their children to school. Those individuals are having to face and to suffer from this uncaring government, this government that doesn't understand and is out of touch with your reality, reducing the school transportation subsidy and collecting an increased amount of excise tax, the Economic and Social Review has shown. It then brings me to the ongoing conversation about ebooks. Just this week, I had cause to post on social media about the high cost of school books. Some parents said to me that depending on grade, they can spend up to $800 per child on just books alone. Just books, $800 per child. No uniforms, no vests, no bags. It's not there yet. This $800 per child in just school books is an enormously high cost, especially when one considers that there could be more than one child per family. Given this reality, I suggested a policy that was construed and executed by the United Workers' Party while in government, that we had begun the digitalization of our education system to ease the cost of books on parents who have to struggle each year with trying to meet the cost of these expensive books year after year. The Labour Party has unfortunately made this debate about laptops versus ebooks and have done nothing in the last 3 years to utilize technology as a means of reducing the cost of books. But on behalf of the many mothers that spoke to me during my summer shopping, I implore this government to swiftly utilize technology to reduce the cost of books on the backs of you, the people of St. Lucia. This is a no-brainer, and it is sad to see that the government went back to their laptops, their favorite laptop program, all to say that they are right and we were wrong. But what have they done to now make the school books less or more affordable to you, the people of St. Lucia? Nothing. Our students are the most technologically savvy and naturally adapt to technological devices better than any generation in our entire history. They are ready for this transformation of the education system and ready to be trained for jobs in the future. AI, artificial intelligence, rather, cybersecurity, and data projection, just to name a few. Let's not hold them back. Let's reimagine the education system. Let's see the digital economy playing a more substantial role in the development of our country with the vastness of its possibilities. The United Workers' Party is a party of possibilities. We are the party of the future. We believe in the possibility of every student. We believe that whether via a skill or via traditional academic subjects, that together we can overcome the roadblocks to a more prosperous future. Thank you very much.
First of all, let me say good morning to the members of the media present, my colleague, and of course a special good morning to those of you viewing on live stream. And this morning, my topic is crime. While the St. Lucia Labour Party are saying that they are marching for progress, we have already seen what has gotten progressively worse in this country. The situation as it relates to healthcare was documented by the St. Lucia Medical and Dental Association, and we were told that it has become the worst that it has ever been in our history. The cost of living is among the worst that we have ever experienced. And while St. Lucians are reeling under the high cost of living, while inflation is afflicting almost every St. Lucian, our government chose to make the situation worse, as my colleague just mentioned to you, by the imposition of a 2.5% levy on goods and services, which, of course, many single mothers especially are feeling the brunt of it now that we are back to school. But another area where we have gotten progressively worse is crime. And I've chosen to speak on that issue. Not that health is not important, not that the cost of living is not important, but the ultimate is life. And with the crime wave that we have experienced in the last 3 years, we are seeing quite a number of St. Lucians losing their lives as a result of the inaction of our government, and very little has been said or done by way of alleviating that situation. The best course of action taken by our government thus far is to create new posts, new positions for their members. And so now we have, in addition to the Ministry of Home Affairs that is responsible for the police, we have, in addition to the Minister of National Security that is responsible for our safety and protection, we have now come up with a ministry called a Ministry of Crime Prevention, whatever that means. St. Lucians, it is a very serious situation, especially given the fact that St. Lucian lives do not matter to our government. Your life does not matter to the government to the extent that, irrespective how heinous, how callous, how unorthodox the crime committed is in terms of loss of life, we do not hear a word from the various ministers with portfolios related to crime. And so what they go about doing is touting the need to protect the victory, in other words, to secure their jobs. They talk about putting people first, but of course the people that they put first are the foreigners to whom they have scandalously given away some of our patrimony, like the ports, like the halls of justice, like the CIP program. But we do not see in any way where we, St. Lucians, the civilians of this country, matter to the government. And so, in the past 3 years, more than 200 St. Lucians have lost their lives. But if we to deal with more recent events, after having set a record of 75 homicides last year, this year, the trend has continued, and as a matter of fact, we are on course to breaking last year's record. And if we continue as we have started, we will be well over 80 homicides for this year. This does not seem to be an issue for our government. This does not seem to be a concern for our government. And so we, the citizens of St. Lucia, instead of merely living in fear, instead of being unprotected against the onslaught of criminals, we have to speak out, we have to take a stand, and we have to make it abundantly clear to the government that this situation is untenable and unacceptable. And so, when we see, in the past, we saw criminals declaring war on criminals, for some, the attitude was, let the criminals kill the criminals. We can no longer indulge in that kind of backward thinking, because that has given rise to crime going beyond gang members, beyond just criminals, and innocent St. Lucians are losing their lives in the process. In the past, we could have said that we avoid being involved in criminal activity. You could have asked your children to stay off the streets, because even when the criminals were going after the criminals, some people were caught in the crossfire innocently. But now, it is worse. It is different. You don't have to be in a gang. You don't have to be on the streets. The new development now is that we are seeing that gangsters are kicking down the doors of people's homes and killing people in the sanctuary of their very homes. I want to remind you of this young adolescent. Well, before I go there, last year we heard of cases where grandparents, toddlers, and other people who were known to be law-abiding citizens were gunned down at their homes. Some on the streets as well. We have heard this year that an adolescent, a 13-year-old, in the sanctuary of his parents' home, was shot dead. Not even that has jolted our government into the realization that we have a major crisis on our hands and that crime has gotten out of control in this country. We have gotten to the point where you can no longer feel safe, whether on the streets or in your home. And that is a critical situation for us to find ourselves in. I want to, as I always do, remind the government of St. Lucia that one of the primary functions of a government is to provide security and safety for its citizens. The government has failed miserably. The Minister of National Security, the Minister of Home Affairs, and the so-called Minister of Crime Prevention have all done a dismal job as St. Lucia continues to increasingly become unsafe. I do not have to remind you that the consequences of such a situation, quite apart from the ultimate, which is the irreversible loss of life, we are putting our freedom in jeopardy. As we have seen in the past, criminals have imposed curfews on law-abiding citizens. We are also jeopardizing our economy, which depends largely on tourism. If this is not enough to satisfy the government that crime should be a priority and that everything in their power should be done to put this situation under control, then that tells you to what extent the government cares about you, the citizens of St. Lucia. And so it is important that we do everything to arrest crime. But I rather suspect that it is left unto us, the law-abiding citizens, to protect ourselves. What happens very often in situations like this is that you have vigilante states, you have a breakdown in law and order, where people begin to take the law into their own hands because they feel to protect themselves and to be safe, they have to resort to being criminals themselves. That will lead us to a lawless society. And if the government does not understand that, then we the people have to take a stand to let them know that it is intolerable and unacceptable. And so I want to say that at this juncture, we the people are calling on the government to understand that every life in this country matters. We want to call on the government to make them understand that we have lost many St. Lucians in the prime of their lives. And in the process, the few cases that are solved, it means that we are losing other young people who are the perpetrators of those crimes. And so today, it is of even greater concern to me when I hear that people in the sanctuary of their homes can be invaded by imposters who pose as police officers. And now, while I understand that we are in the throes of celebrating our La Rose Festival, and I know that in the culture of La Rose, there are police or people who dress like police officers and so on, and other professions, fake police officers, of course, as part of the celebrating the culture of La Rose. I did not expect it to extend to the point where those fake officers will go to people's homes, knock on their doors in the wee hours of the morning, and open gunfire on the occupants of the home. This further complicates the situation in terms of the relationship between the citizens and the police. Already, there is a lack of trust on the part of citizens toward the police. Now, you cannot even trust whether or not someone who says he's a police officer is in fact a police officer. That is a very serious situation. I have not heard a comment from the Minister of Home Affairs. I have not heard a comment from the Prime Minister. If we do not realize it, our crime in St. Lucia is becoming more sophisticated by the day. We speak of homicides, but if we are to look at crime as a whole, just last week, it was reported that employees of a bank, after having left their workplace, were held up and held hostage in the city of Castries. Okay? In the evening, before dark, that was done. Taken back to their workplace, and the workplace robbed. That is the kind of sophistication that we have approached in crime. And when crime goes unabated, unchecked, it only becomes worse and worse. And that is what we are seeing in this country today. So, I say to St. Lucians, it is time that we say to our government, enough is enough. And if nothing is said and done, we are going to take a stand for our lives, for our safety, for the protection of our country. I want to take this opportunity to congratulate the newly appointed Commissioner of Police, Mr. Gad. I'm wishing him well in his tenure. I'm hoping that his appointment will make a difference. I know his task is a difficult one because he is inheriting a situation that is dire. I'm hoping that he's up to the task, and so we are calling upon you to provide St. Lucians with some reprieve through your crime-fighting efforts with the men and women of the St. Lucia Police Force. Understand that we are not hearing from our government So it will be good and comforting if from time to time we can hear from you and your institution, the police, as to what exactly is being done to ameliorate the crime situation that we are facing. Once again, sir, I wish you all the best, and I ask all St. Lucians to give their support in any way possible to the new commissioner as we try to bring the crime situation that our government is unperturbed and unconcerned about under some measure of control. Thank you.
Mr. Monk, there's a couple of questions there for you from Facebook, members of the media.
Yeah.
The first one is, what is where you answered it, the opposition's reaction to the new police commissioner, and how do you think that this will help to ameliorate crime?
Well, we want to take the posture of giving the new police commissioner an opportunity to prove himself. He's starting off with our support, and we're hoping that he is well-intentioned. We have no reason to believe otherwise, and we are saying to him that a lot more than has been done needs to be done, and I hope he can rally the forces of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force to ensure that we bring about some control in what is happening here right now, and if anything, we can reduce the incidence of crime, particularly what I consider to be the ultimate, that is loss of life in this country, which seems to be so prevalent that it has become an everyday occurrence to the point where it does not even matter to our government anymore. And I want to point out to you that we have not probably taken note of it, but when a life is lost through violent means in St. Lucia now, all it results in is that you become a statistic and you may get passing mention in the news, and that's the end of it.
Yeah, another question from the media here on WhatsApp is, so does the decision by the government not to renew the contract of the outgoing police commissioner, does it have anything to do with the fact that she has investigated she has launched an investigation into the allegations of sexual harassment within the police force? The Prime Minister confirmed such, that he was aware of this. He said so yesterday in his press briefing.
Well, I will not speak on behalf of or for the government, but speculation is rife that the reason why the contract of the outgoing commissioner was not renewed is because she had the audacity to instigate an investigation based on the complaints made by female police officers about the deputy police commissioner. And so it is for the Prime Minister, who is the Minister of National Security, to clarify whether that had anything to do with his decision. But I can say to you, if that is the case, that is really unfortunate, because what she would have been doing is actually performing her duties as she should.
The appointment of Mr. Guard is being asked by a media house here is 6 months. Don't you think that this is a bit piecemeal by the government, not taking the leadership of the police force at this very crisis situation?
Well, the indecisiveness of the government does not help the situation, especially as it relates to crime. The government is almost telegraphing to us that they do not have full confidence in the gentleman. So if you are going to appoint a police commissioner, you should demonstrate in every way, in every fashion, that you have confidence in that individual. And to appoint him as acting commissioner for only 6 months does not speak well of how much confidence the Prime Minister and the government has in the gentleman. So I think that in itself says that the government is not sure-footed and they are not decisive as to what exactly they are doing.
All right, there's a question here about CIP, and it is as it relates to the Prime Minister's response on Andre Paul's show as to whether he was aware of anyone making an offer on his behalf, and he said he didn't know. Do you find that as an acceptable answer?
That is totally unacceptable. At the end of the day, a leader, a good leader, is supposed to be forthright, is supposed to be forthcoming and honest with his people. And for the Prime Minister to say that he did not know, he is being dishonest. Because the Prime Minister knows that the lawyers who were engaged are actually being paid indirectly by government. When I say indirectly, he, by his own admission, are being paid by the CIP unit. Now, if you're going to pay the lawyers, don't tell me you do not know what is happening, you do not know what is going on. And given the magnitude of that scandal, the Prime Minister ought to have his pulse on the matter and to be monitoring very closely all what is going on at this time. So it is unacceptable to say to St. Lucians that you do not know, which seems to be the trend with the Prime Minister. Either he deceives St. Lucians by outright telling lies, or he pretends not to know rather than to give an answer. He has gone as far as saying to St. Lucians that certain things are not our business. He has gone as far as inviting us to speculate rather than for him to give answers. But the time has come, as leader of this country, for the Prime Minister to step up to his responsibilities and answer the questions, the pertinent questions that are asked of him.
So there's another question here via WhatsApp. Someone is asking what is of having an acting Governor General.
You know, it's interesting that you asked that question was asked, because when I heard the Prime Minister indicate that he was going to ask the acting Governor General to ask the Commissioner to act, you know, I wonder, you know, all of this acting, you know, where he himself is acting as if he's not the Prime Minister or the Minister of National Security. I think it's time we cut out all the act and get real. Because after 3 years, you know, and that is the thing with this government, the things that they complain and point fingers at are the things that they are guilty of. After 3 years, again, indecisiveness. You cannot make up your mind as to whether you want the gentleman to be Governor General or not. I mean, that is unacceptable. Acting for 3 years, you cannot make a decision. And that is what happens when you take a follower and try to thrust him upon people as a leader. The current Prime Minister has been a follower all his life. He is not known to have taken a stand on anything. And you can track his political history. No one can point to anything that the Prime Minister has spearheaded or taken a stand on. He is not known for any position. And that is what you get when you have indecisive people leading a country.
Another one on CIP. Someone is asking, what is the UWP's view on paying for Mr. McLeod's legal representation? The PM said that McLeod was not named in his personal capacity.
Well, it is not about the UWP's view. The Prime Minister said it. That
No. The question is, what is the UWP's view of government paying for Mr. McLeod's legal fees in the RICO case?
The government.
The Prime Minister said he is not.
Well, our position.
Sued in his personal capacity.
Our position is, if he is sued in his personal capacity, he should utilize his personal funds in his defense. Because if St. Lucia was not sued, as the Prime Minister insists all the time, then why should St. Lucia be involved in paying legal fees for those who are? And so I think the Prime Minister should set the record straight, or we St. Lucians should demand that the monies utilized to pay for someone's defense in a personal matter should be returned, and let the individual deal with his personal matter himself.
Someone said, what are some of the things that the CIP funds could be used for, if all of the monies were collected?
Well, I heard you lament. I mean, I do not want to sound insensitive. Thank God I don't have children going to school anymore, but I used to. And I can only imagine, because the burden was not as heavy then as it is now. But I heard you lament all of the crises that parents are going through in terms of school books, in terms of uniforms, in terms of providing supplies to their children for the reopening of school. The CIP money could be utilized, first and foremost, to get all the e-books that students require, that would provide for them all the textbooks that they require, which would save parents the cost of textbooks. In addition to this, we could increase the subsidy on school transportation. That would cut back on the expense for parents. We could also increase the food subsidy, because with this high inflation that we go in and high cost of living that we are facing in St. Lucia, there are parents who are struggling, who are finding it difficult to provide for their children when they go to school, to give them a proper meal. That money could have gone toward all of this. And I'm saying there are many other areas that the CIP money could have been utilized in addressing the condition of our roads, for example. CIP money could have been utilized for that. And I noticed that after pressure, they have come up with some money for the health care system. When we consider the amount of money that is in play with CIP, with the number of citizenships that have been sold, that is only a drop in the bucket. We should have been able to provide the millions of dollars that are required to bring our health system up to scratch. That could have been addressed by the CIP funds.
All right, so there's a question here from Choice TV, and it's about how much was the out-of-court settlement to range development. Government want change in the deal, which caused range to scrap the deal.
Okay, so let me take a minute to speak on this, because the new approach of the current government, rather than dealing with issues, what they do, they come with distractions and deflections and try to change the subject with narratives that suits them. Of late, the government is asking about range and suggesting that there was something untoward with range. Well, let me just say, range is a company that was brought to St. Lucia by the St. Lucia Labour Party, and they were approved as a CIP developer.
6 days before the election.
And the government, then the St. Lucia Labour Party, went into a contractual arrangement with range 6 days before the 2016 general elections. And in that agreement, they were allowed to sell passports or citizenship, St. Lucian citizenship, and the proceeds would be used to build a hotel. 6 days later, the people of St. Lucia spoke, and there was a change of government. Upon assuming office, the Prime Minister, then Prime Minister Honorable Shasney, who was also the minister responsible for CIP, was not happy with the arrangement, and so he entered into renegotiations with Range about the arrangements that were made. He decided that instead of the real estate option, where they would be selling citizenship and utilizing the money to build their hotel, he said, instead, let us go the route of the donation option. That is, each person who wants to become a citizen would make a donation of $100,000. That would be given to the government of St. Lucia. And to assist Range in building the hotel, the government would provide them with a loan from that money, which they would pay back. So at the end of the day, St. Lucia would have benefited something in addition to just the jobs that were created, and not just providing Range with a hotel. And so Range agreed. By then, Range had sold some $20 million worth of citizenship. But then the laws of St. Lucia did not permit the then administration to immediately put into effect the agreement, because the money in the consolidated fund, there's no provision to allow you to loan it to someone. And so the changes to create a special fund and to put the legislation in place had begun. So that the Attorney General had begun doing. I don't have to remind St. Lucians how tedious and bureaucratic government processes are. It took quite a while, during which time Range became frustrated and felt that it was too much of a long and drawn-out process for them, and so they wanted out. They decided they're no longer going ahead with the arrangement. In light of that, they decided to part ways. In parting ways, St. Lucia, the government of St. Lucia had to reimburse them for their expenses that they already incurred. And they had incurred expenses of surveying the land, for example, architectural drawings and things of that nature, buying the property and all of that. And it came to 1 point something million US dollars that the government had to refund them. In addition to that, they were selling citizenship to the tune of $20 million, and so they had to get a commission for having done that. Their commission came to about $2 million US dollars. So in all, the government of St. Lucia had to pay Range 3 point something. I cannot give you the exact figure, and I do not want to misquote, but it was a little in excess of $3 million US dollars. That left the government of St. Lucia with 16 point something million dollars. So at the end of the day, contrary to what is being suggested by the St. Lucia Labour Party, where St. Lucians were done out and lost anything, we gained from that arrangement 16 point something million dollars, while Range were paid for their effort as commission and for their expenses 3 point something million dollars. That, to my mind, is a far better arrangement than having allowed them to go ahead selling our citizenship, as I suspect is being done now with Galaxy, selling our citizenship and using our money to build their hotel. And so that is the reality, that is the truth of the matter. And St. Lucians, you can rest assured that that is just smoke, that like red herrings that they're flashing to distract and deflect from the reality. There was nothing untoward, nothing underhand as far as that is concerned. If you ask me, I think St. Lucia came out of the deal pretty good with over $16 million.
Could you explain as well, if you can put in a bit of Creole, some of the displacements, the farmers that were on the Black Bay land as well,
okay,
and as well as the work permits
okay,
that the government in the Range Development Agreement.
Now, talking about foreigners and so on, when Range came in, because we have to talk about DSH and Tioakim, when Range came into play, the government of St. Lucia took into control lands in the Black Bay areas where a number of local farmers were occupying. And those farmers were displaced. Okay, and that land is the land that was given to Range with the hope of building the hotel. So, Samagadi a say, le Range vini, Range c'est un compagnie étranger, le yo vini cette ici, yo mette yo kon un développeur en CIP, avec yo te vle bâti un hôtel, gouvernement d'accord pour quitter yo 20 passeports Saint-Lucie pour faire l'argent pour bâtir hôtel yo. Avec terre yo te servi, c'est terre pharma en sous de là te ka occupé pour faire produit yo, avec le gouvernement déplacé yo, ti yo a sauté ça avec by Range ça. Ça c'est la vérité. Si le gouvernement voulait parler about Range, yo savait ni 17 lycéens, c'est bagay ça là, because c'est ça qui la vérité. Yes, thank you. And so we have nothing to hide about the Range agreement. We have nothing to be ashamed of. We have nothing that is underhand that took place or anything criminal or illegal that took place. That is the story. That is the reality. I wish the government now would come and speak to St. Lucians like we are doing on the issue of Galaxy and what exactly is transpiring with the thousands of citizenships that are being sold. Tell us where that money is going, who gets that money, and what is the intention, what are the arrangements. That is what we want to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montu. No further questions.
Thank you very much. And I would like to thank all of you who have been following us on live stream. Tune in next week when we once again will have a press briefing. And of course, you can tune in on Thursday morning for Midday Opposition, on Thursday evening for Roundtable, on Sunday for Flambeau Live. And as of the 17th of September, we will be bringing you a new talk show on Hot TV and Kiss FM. Simulcast will be taking place there. You'll get more details on this. Stay tuned and follow the party that brings you the truth and shows you the light. Thank you very much.